Hey everybody, this is Jeff Stanek with Figured Out Baseball here for another Figured Out Baseball podcast. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by Dan Davis. Dan is the head coach at Truman State University, which is an NCAA Division II team in Kirksville, Missouri. This year, Coach Davis will be heading into his 13th season. We'll give you a little bit of background on Coach Davis before we jump into questions. He started his college playing career at Garden City Community College, then went to Cowley County Community College, and then finally to Southern Illinois University, a Division I school in Illinois, obviously. He was there in pitching for that team in 1994 and 1995. In 1994, he led the team in strikeouts and set a school record for innings pitched. In 1995, in his second season, he led the team in strikeouts, ERA, and tied for the team lead in wins. After his career at Southern Illinois, Coach Davis played 2 years of pro ball. Then he began his coaching career at Independence Community College, then went to Southern Illinois, his alma mater, and then became the pitching coach at Northern Iowa, which was the Division I school. They have since dropped baseball, but obviously had it at that time. He was the pitching coach at Northern Iowa from 2001 to 2006. His 2001 team won the conference tournament and advanced to the NCAA regional for the first time in school history. That year, he had a pitcher on his staff who was named the Conference Pitcher of the Year. He was also named an All-American. In 2002, he coached a freshman All-American. His 2006 team, his pitching staff had a 4.63 ERA, which was the lowest mark since Northern Iowa converted to Division I. His Northern Iowa pitching staff, the Northern Iowa pitching staff in the history of the program had struck out 400 or more hitters only 3 times in a season. Two of those seasons happened in Coach Davis's 6 years as the pitching coach. Also in his 6 years at Northern Iowa as the pitching coach, he coached 9 players who signed pro contracts, none of whom had been drafted out of high school. At Truman State, this will be his 13th season. In Coach's first 12 seasons, he's won 196 games, which is second all-time at Truman State. He has coached 33 all-conference players. He set a ton of single-season, has had players who have set a ton of single-season and career records under his tutelage, and we'll kind of touch on a couple of them here. He's had 11 players who have earned all-conference Player of the Week honors. He's had 7 all-district selections, 3 academic All-Americans. His teams have averaged 20 academic all-conference selections each year. His teams have also been very active in community service, which I'd like to talk with Coach Davis a little bit about in a few minutes. In 2011, here are a couple highlights at Truman State. In 2011, his pitcher set the school record for strikeouts in a season. He also had the first player drafted from Truman State since 1999 that year, 2011. In 2012, he coached a player who became the school's all-time hits leader. 2014, his team set school records for runs, hits, RBIs, hit by pitches, stolen bases, saves, and fielding percentage. In 2015, Coach Davis was named the ABCA Midwest Coach of the Year after setting a school record with 35 wins. That year they played in the team's first ever NCAA tournament. They won their regional that year and actually went to the NCAA Division II World Series. In 2016, Coach Davis coached a player who set the school record for most innings pitched in his career. His 2017 team hit 31 home runs, which is the most the team has hit since 1993. They're also that year one of only 20 NCAA Division II programs to earn the ABCA's Team Academic Excellence Award. And then 2018, Coach Davis coached a player who set the all-time record for career wins and innings pitched. 2018 became the 4th straight year that his team received the Sportsmanship Award as voted on by conference coaches. And I'll give you an idea of what that award is. That award is given to teams that display exemplary sportsmanship, character, and conduct during the season, which is really something to be proud of. Also in 2018, his team won the Academic Excellence Award for the 2nd straight season, and that team was one of only 37 Division II teams in the country to earn that honor. So, Coach Davis, we really appreciate you being here today, and very excited to get into things and just talk about your program a little bit.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
So, Coach, I want to just jump in to a couple of the things I mentioned while going through your bio. Your team is really involved with community service. You've won a ton of your players have won a ton of academic awards. Your teams have won academic awards. You've again your team has won the Sportsmanship Award in your conference 4 straight years, and that's voted on by the other coaches in the conference. Can you just tell me a little bit about why that stuff seems to be so important to you? Because I think people that have listened to enough podcasts here, or just are pay attention to the college athletics, whatever sport it is, usually you could tell it's important to a team and to a coaching staff just based on what they do and what their teams, the things their teams do from year to year, the awards they win, things like that, and it seems pretty evident that that the academic stuff, the off the field stuff, the community service projects, the sportsmanship, that stuff seems to be really important to you. Would you mind just talking a little bit about why that's so important as you're constructing your team and as you're going through things with your team year by year?
Yeah, it's an honor to be a collegiate athlete, and I believe our job, obviously with the baseball side of things, the athletics side of things, it's our job to help them reach their full potential when it comes to playing the game. But our bigger, most kids are not going to play baseball for the rest of their lives. It's just not going to be a career that they go into to put food on their table and grow families. So I guess what we like to play good baseball, but we also want to focus on a well-rounded person and a man that's going to become a great citizen in their community in the future. And I believe that with getting the opportunity to be a college athlete, you also carry greater responsibilities to your community. We're a high academic school, so luckily I get to recruit high academic kids who take care of their business in the classroom. But we also want to make sure that our guys understand that they offer more than just what they do on the field. Through working with a couple of things that we've done some cleanup days around the city of Kirksville. I think we helped with the Alzheimer's walk this year. This is our second year. We're all growing our hair out right now because we are participating in the Versus Cancer campaign that helps fight the good fight against pediatric cancer. We're raising money for that, and then we're going to shave our heads at a game later on this spring. And we're very blessed when we get the opportunity to play the game at a higher level, and we feel like it's an honor and it's our duty to give back, and that's what we're trying to do, and make sure our guys understand that giving back to the community is a lifelong thing that they have to that they should want to, but they should also feel a duty to do.
How are your players receptive to that when they come on campus? Do they expect that when they come on campus, and is it something that the first time they're going through that, what sort of reactions do you get from your players?
Our guys know that we're going to do those things through the recruiting process. I mean, they are. We talk about it while we're recruiting them. When they sit in our office, when their parents sit in the office with us as well. We go over those things, and hopefully we're clear on what we're trying to accomplish on the field, but also within the community and the growth as a complete person and not just as an athlete.
Besides those couple things that you mentioned, is there anything in particular? I guess there anything in particular that the players look forward to off the field that you guys do from year to year, being the shaving the heads or whatever it may be? What do your players look forward to the most off the field?
I think that one has been a great one. They've done a great job. 2015, was a great year on the field. That was our World Series year, but that was also our first year that we participated in the Versus Cancer campaign, and our guys loved it. I mean, typically we have our kids, they have to cut their hair, they have to shave, they have to look the part, and they got the opportunity to grow their hair out, and I mean, there was some wild hair going on that year, and I think it was really fun. At the beginning, there were a couple of guys who have nice, good-looking hair and full head of hair, and they were a little hesitant. But then when they understood that we're helping out kids that are less fortunate than us. I think they really got into it and understood that cutting the hair off is just a symbol of the support that we give to folks who may not have it quite as good as we do. And I think our guys have bought in and really look forward to just about everything that we do. But I think the versus cancer one is a big deal for almost all of us, because we've all know someone or have someone in our family who's been affected by cancer, and that's a big I guess disease that we're trying to help out with, and it's just a tough one, and we want to be a part of the cure, I guess.
It's great to hear programs that have the bigger picture, and I really like talking to coaches that that see that bigger picture, and they have things they want to accomplish in their team, in their program besides winning. I think obviously every team wants to win, and but it's good to hear teams that make it a priority with their players to understand that there's more to it than that, and this is just 4 years in your life, and there's a bigger picture out there that you're trying to set them up for. And I really like what you said earlier, just about helping the kids reach their full potential, and understand that that's more than just baseball. So when you get a kid on campus, Coach, and at that point you've probably more than likely seen him play several times. You have an idea that he can play for you physically. Is there anything on campus during the visit that that a player could say to make you either I guess like him more, or make you feel like this maybe is not such a great fit for our program? Like what do you see you're looking for when kids come to visit campus and you're interacting with them and trying to get to know them and their families better?
Well, when you see them, how they dress, how they carry themselves, what they look like is the very first, the first impression, and how they speak. I think those first impressions go a long ways. I think by the time we get them on campus, we've already gotten a chance to talk to them on the phone. We've seen them, how they react with their teammates on the field. There's quite honestly, there's been kids that we've just stopped recruiting by watching how they act on the field. A specific example is a few years ago, we had offered a junior college pitcher who was having a fantastic year and was really, he had won. I think he was 9-1. And we honestly, I didn't get a chance to see him other than on video and early on, and we offered him. And I got a chance. Our season had been cut short early. Unfortunately, we didn't make the playoffs, and I got a chance to go see him pitch. He had waited and waited and waited, and he had his roughest day. And honestly, that's when I want to see kids how they react in their toughest day. It's easy. Everybody's good when everything's going right. I mean, it's easy to compete when everything is going your way because it's just easy. But the times when you have to fight and you have to scratch and you have to claw and your true character comes out. Well, he left the game early. His coach came out to get him. He flips the ball to his coach. Just a poor attitude, and quite honestly, we called him on the way home and said that this isn't the right place for him because it can be tough here, and we need guys that when it gets tough, they fight and they scratch and they claw and they battle through tough times and adversity, and I got to see his toughest day, and he probably went on and had a great career, but the one time that I got to see him, it left a bad taste in our mouth, and we couldn't take him. So I think the story, the moral to the story is with all the kids out there wanting to play the game at the highest level is don't give anybody a chance to cross you off the list. Make sure that you're focused and you show your best character at any time, any opportunity you get, because you never know who's watching.
It's a really interesting point. I'd like to ask you a little more about that. So when a player's having a bad day, if you've got a chance to go see this particular player you're talking about, and you know the stats he's put up to that point, you've seen video, you've heard a lot about him, you've spoken to him obviously, and a player has a bad day, what would you like to see as a coach? Like as a young player listening to this, or as a parent of a young player, or even a high school coach listening to this who's trying to I guess give some advice to his young players about how to act, how to carry themselves. What could you have seen from that player that day that, despite having a bad day on the mound, would have, still would have made you go through the recruiting process and try to get him on campus? What could he have done differently? What would you like to see from a player when he's having a bad day on the field?
Well, body language goes a long way. It speaks louder than words. Having that great body language, that ability to pick your teammates up, and seeing guys, I may go 0 for 4 at the plate, but we score a run, I get off the bench and I high five my teammate that just scored, or one of our pitchers throws a great pitch to gets us out of a tough situation. Getting off the bench and high fiving that guy and picking somebody up, or throwing an arm around a guy that maybe kicks a ground ball that could have been a big inning-ending double play. And that guy didn't mean to, make an error, but a great teammate will pick him up and say, "Hey, we got you, got your back," and show that in the way you carry yourself. And I think that probably will go the furthest when it comes to coaches going out and watching guys. The guy that the pitcher that comes in and throws a game during the summer, he might be playing at a showcase tournament, and he gets done pitching, and then he goes over and takes his uniform off in the dugout, and he's in shorts and a t-shirt the rest of the game. I know it's hot, but you're there for your team, and you should have pride in that uniform, and you should want to wear that thing as long as possible. And those are just little things that coaches pick up on. And I guess the bottom line is make sure you do things that show that you're in it for the team, and you're giving yourself to the team, and what you do individually doesn't matter as much. I think that's what we're all looking for.
Just to take it one step further, because I think this is one of the most important things that young players can learn about when they're listening to this is how to carry themselves when things aren't going their way. First of all, why is that so important to you? And second of all, is it okay for a player to show emotion, to show that he's upset, that he's had a bad day? Is it okay to see any negative emotion from him to a point just where he's just getting some frustration out? If he's then able to come back and support his team. And secondly, why is it so important to you that a player is able to carry himself in this way?
Yeah, it's 100%. I mean, there is a time and a place for showing emotion, and we're all human. We're not robots. I mean, we all get that. But when what you want to do is see maybe that you expend that negative emotion, and then you come right back and you have your time to maybe get rid of that negativity, and then bounce right back and come back from it. It's sort of a double-edged sword, because if you don't show any kind of negative emotion, it almost looks like you don't care. And we know that's not the case, but if you carry yourself, oh man, I struck out the first at bat. Now I get to the next at bat, and I'm carrying that the first at bat where I struck out. Now I'm carrying that to the next at bat, and I could have a good solid at bat for my team, and I failed there. Well, now I carry it out to the field, and my emotions are just are letting loose, and not we don't find a way to corral those and turn them into positive. I guess that's what I'm talking about. Is it's probably a sustained negativity over the course of a game or a weekend or a tournament. But I don't think negative. I don't think any emotion including negative emotion, is a complete it is a complete downer. I think, there's, like I said, we're all human, and we're going to show that at times, and nobody's perfect. But if you let it dwell and you pull your teammates down with you over a sustained period of time, I think that's where we're looking at. That's not what we're really looking for out of a player. We don't see that ability to have that mental toughness that allows us to get rid of that failed at bat or that dropped fly ball or whatever bad can happen, a poor base running mistake, and then bounce back from it and stay in the game and pick teammates up and do something positive for your team, whether it be mentally and just cheering your teammate on or do something in the game during an at bat that does something good. I think it's the ability to bounce back from a failed opportunity.
I've heard other coaches talk about, in the dugout, you're either a guy that's bringing energy or sucking energy out of the dugout, and that's an important part to me as a coach, and something that as a college coach and a high school coach, I was big on. Not that I wanted my teams to be, really rah in the dugout or necessarily be constantly cheering and making noise, but it was important to me that guys brought positive energy to the team even when they weren't able to contribute, because to me that was, in my opinion, that was something that they could contribute to the team, even if they were out of the game or hadn't gotten in the game yet. That was something they could bring just to help their teammates, because to me a dugout that's filled with positive energy and a dugout that's filled with guys that are picking each other up and encouraging one another, that was a dugout that was going to have a pretty good chance of having success that day.
Absolutely. We've talked to our guys about this fall, as a matter of fact. Do you play the game because you're going to win, you're guaranteed to win, or do you play the game because you love the game? And there's a difference. If you play the game because you love the game, then more than likely you're going to have a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, you look at the scoreboard and you see what happens. I mean, the scoreboard is the result, and that's, it is what it is. You might play your best day, your whole team might have their best game, and just run into a buzzsaw and get beat that day and play really well. But you may lose. But you also may play horribly and win a game just because it just happened. The ball fell where it was supposed to for you, and great things happened for you. But at the end of the day, whether you played well or if you had fun or if you didn't. I think so. Positive energy doesn't mean rah and hey, let's do a bunch of cheers and all that good stuff. But positive energy means have fun and enjoy being around your teammates and have a blast playing the game, because you play the game because you love the game and not so much because you're going to win or lose that day.
Perfect. That's really good way to look at it, and a great thing to talk to your team about. You mentioned earlier the specific player you mentioned was a junior college player, and I'm interested to know, because I think that a lot of people that listen to this podcast probably don't know as much about junior college baseball as they should. And I'm a huge junior college advocate myself, as I coached at two different junior colleges, and frankly, I wish I had played at a junior college. I think it would have been a better thing for my career. But so you guys, your team is, or your school, I should say, Truman State is a good academic school. Good academic schools, how difficult is it for you to get a junior college player in? Is there anything specific that a junior college player needs to do academically to qualify to play for you? Does it have to do with his high school, GPA and SAT or ACT at all, or is it all dependent on the academic work they do at a junior college? Can you just kind of talk us through that process and how it goes to recruit a junior college player from Truman State?
Absolutely. We use the junior college transfer guys to fill in gaps in our lineup or on our pitching staff. Just fill holes that we feel like we need a little bit more experience. We honestly recruit mostly high school guys, but we do fill the gaps with the transfer guys, and they play a great role for us. For our academics, based solely on Truman State University. I don't know a bunch about other schools, but for us, they're held to the same high academic standards. We don't get exceptions to the rules. So they don't, it doesn't go revert back to their high school. It reverts to their college work. So typically for us just to put a number on it, I guess, a transfer guy probably has to be right at least a 3.0 or better before we will even think about recruiting them. If they're below a 3 it's going to be tough for us to get those guys in. And again, I said this before. We don't work with exceptions to the admissions rules here. The academic standards are what they are, and quite honestly, we don't want to bring someone in who's not capable of doing the work or hasn't proven that they're capable of doing the work. So when we go for a transfer guy, they have to be a great student, just like our high school guys.
Very good. I want to switch gears just a little bit, Coach, and just ask you about your some experiences you've had as a coach. We've talked a little bit just about some things that you think are important and things that you really value within your program. But as a coach, what's the most satisfying feeling or experience that you've gotten or continue to get on a year-by-year basis? What's the most satisfying thing to you about coaching college baseball?
Wow, there are so many things that are great about this profession. I guess number one is we've seen guys go on. I've been going into their career. I've been lucky enough to be at a great school where guys have success in their careers. And for instance, I know I have 5 guys that have gone on to be doctors, medical doctors. I have a couple of guys that have become physical therapists, a whole ton of guys that have become accountants and businessmen. We actually have a great agriculture department here, and I've got 2 guys that are out that are managers, and I couldn't tell you the companies that they're with, but that have graduated with 4-year degrees and gone on to become managers immediately in the agriculture industry. The kids move on and they become extremely successful in their careers, and I've been lucky enough to be invited to several weddings, hear about guys that I've coached that are having kids now and starting families, and those are amazing things that I've gotten the opportunity to be around. Out off the field, on the field, the 2015 experience with those guys was just unbelievable. That was a group of guys who started off as freshmen and struggled. They all played pretty much as freshmen, and it was a good core group that played for 4 years straight and grew up together and ended up one of the final 8 teams to play in the country that year as seniors. And, I had a couple of those guys come back and tell me, they thought I was selling them snake oil for freshman year when they were getting beat up. And, but a couple of them thought about transferring out and they bought in and decided not to, obviously, and they bought in and they could see the vision that we had, and it paid off for them. And that's probably one of my favorite on-field experiences that I've had with our guys in my coaching career in 23 years of coaching college baseball. Just seeing those guys grow up and have success that we promised them if they stuck together, and having that trust that those guys had in us as a coaching staff.
Great experiences there, and it's really something as a college baseball coach that people maybe not always realize, but it's difficult to be a college baseball player to begin with, because you show up on campus and you go through a long and difficult fall practice, then you have the off season, and then your season doesn't start until February, and then February you're playing in freezing cold weather. By the time you're done, usually everybody else is off campus already, and it's just a long season, and especially to go through a 3-4 year career on campus and finally have success at the end of your career is something that's, I'm sure, is very, very satisfying for the players as well. I've got a question that may be even more difficult than the last one, and but we've got to ask some difficult questions. So that's that's kind of your most satisfying experience that you've had, and I'm going to ask you this just sort of as something that maybe players or parents, I guess especially players, can look at as almost like a what not to do or prepare to have success on campus. What has been one of the most frustrating experiences that you've experienced with players, whether it's like on a year by year basis or an individual, just something that you wish that you could, I guess, change or coach out of players that maybe isn't always that easy to do? Is there something that particularly frustrates you when you're coaching your guys from year to year?
Oh, wow, that is a tough question.
You don't need to name names, Coach.
And I think, no, I'm not going to name names, but I think this is it's sort of a general every year, I guess, issue that probably all coaches have, is that I think when it comes to players and parents, it's not, coaches don't only care about the kids who play every day. I think it can be easily misunderstood that coaches care for every one of their guys on their team. It can be their best player or their worst player. It doesn't matter who they are, if they start every day or if they're not a regular starter, if they don't play very much at all in their entire career. We don't pick and choose who we like due to playing time or due to success on the field. I think that's probably, I think, one of the biggest maybe negative thoughts of coaches, is that they only care about the guys who win games for them. And in my experience, and I've been to a few different schools and played at a few different schools for a few different coaches, and I've seen firsthand that coaches care for every one of their guys. That can be a huge frustration for us, that just because you don't play doesn't mean you're not a person or in our minds, or that you're not part of our family. I think we genuinely care for every single guy on our team as a person, whether you are the best or not quite the most talented player. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think that you said it really well. And I guess one thing that I've had the experience of, and you can tell me whether or not you've had the same thing, is that guys that don't play as much as they want, they take your feedback differently than players who play as well. It's like the guys that don't play, when you give them feedback, especially on how they can get better, it's not always well received. Whereas a guy who's playing understands that. It seems like the player that plays understands that when you give him feedback, you're trying to make him better. But the player that doesn't play, it's almost like you're singling him out, or you're trying to pick on him or run him out of the program or something. It's like it's the same feedback, but it's received differently from one player to the next. Do you have that experience as well?
Absolutely, and I don't think I don't think it's only I guess pigeonholed into the everyday starter receives it well and the not everyday starter receives it poorly. I think it's across the board, and I think that's one of the big things that we as coaches have to do a better job of understanding how to push the correct buttons and work positively with each and every guy. You may have 35 guys on your team, but you have to work with each one separately and individually and in a different manner, where I may be able to chew this guy out, and that works for him because he's going to really go out and work his tail off for us and do what we say. Well, you chew this guy out, he may think that you're the meanest person on earth and you don't like him. So I think you really have to do a good job of learning your personnel and learning how to work with each one. And I'll be honest with you, I fail at that every day, and I have to. It's a learning process, and I've got a lot to learn in that part of the game.
Well, it's a lot. There's a lot of guys to get to know, and to be able to keep current with 35 players who you only see for a couple hours a day is really difficult, and probably one of the most difficult tasks that coaches have. And that's one of the things about baseball. I know that there's a push being made, at least in Division I, for the fourth coach to be paid, and I think there's at least some grumblings about maybe trying to get other, more coaches on staff. But for 35 players in college baseball to only have 4 coaches maximum on the staff is difficult. It's very, very difficult to be able to spend the amount of time you need with each player and try to get to know him as well, on top of trying to do your job of coaching. To me, that's a really difficult thing that coaches have to do. One final question, Coach, and then I'm going to let you go. I'd like to just know what you do with those players who don't get the playing time they want, because I think that there's just the competitive nature in people. You want all that time that you put in through the fall and the off season, when the spring rolls around and you're actually competing in games. Everybody, I think, wants to play. I think if you don't want to play, you probably aren't there for the right reasons. I think everybody wants to play, or at least have a role where they can have a positive impact in the team. How do you communicate with or deal with the player that is maybe unhappy with the amount of playing time that he's receiving?
Right, that's extremely difficult because it's a touchy I guess subject, because you want them to understand that you're important, that they are important to the team, and I think you have to do a good job of giving them duties, whether it's during the game or during practice, to make sure that they understand that they're contributing in some way. That is probably one of the toughest jobs that we have as a coaching staff, is making sure that the guys that don't play every day are ready to play when they get the opportunity, and they understand that it's important, and that they are important to the team. Probably the most difficult thing that we deal with on a daily basis.
Excellent. Coach, I really appreciate you being with us. Again, this is Dan Davis. He's the head baseball coach at Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri, NCAA Division II team. Coach, I sincerely appreciate you being here with us today. You're a very insightful guy, and obviously doing a lot of things right at Truman State. And I really appreciate your time, and best of luck to your team this spring.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you having me on.